Let's do this.
Yes, we are officially live. Hello, everybody. Love seeing all your comments in the chat. Love seeing some friendly faces. Hi, Henri. We were all saying hi to you earlier. Welcome to State of Headless CMS, presented by This Dot. This is a modern web event, and we're super excited to be here today. So, thank you so much for my company, This Dot Labs, for sponsoring. I'm so excited because my team works so hard so that I can play and do these amazing, fun events and give back to the community. So we are hiring like crazy right now. We have at least 5 positions open, whether it's React, React Native, Vue, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely apply and come hang out with us. A special announcement on April 20th, in about a month, we are going to have a state of application monitoring. So if you care about application monitoring, definitely come check it out. And we're excited about the conversations that'll be happening there. I'm one of your hosts today, so we're going to have some amazing conversations with our panel today. And then we also have Matthew, who is a software engineer here at This Dot, and we're excited to have you, Matthew. Thanks for joining us.
The pleasure is mine. It's a pleasure to be here with so many brilliant minds.
We also have some amazing panelists today. So we have Jason, and maybe we just do like a quick 10-second introduction. So we'll just go around. Jason, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Jason Langsdorf. I work at Netlify as a developer experience engineer. I've been doing a lot of fun things around the internet. I especially love streaming. I do a show called Learn with Jason, and that's the majority of how I spend my time these days.
What an amazing life. Okay, Kapehe.
Yeah, aloha everyone. I'm Kapehe. You can call me Cap for short. I do developer relations at Sanity, and I also have been getting into the streaming world a lot more recently. My coworker and I, Brian, have started a hashtag I made this show where developers in the community come and like show their projects. So a lot of streaming lately for me as well. But yeah, that's me.
Amazing. And Stefan.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stefan. I'm in the developer relations team at Contentful. And yeah, I do a lot of things around the internet. I'm mainly blogging. I tried the streaming thing, but it's so time intensive. So I stick to the written word. That's me.
Thanks. And Daniel.
Hey, I'm Daniel Piri. I'm a developer advocate at Strappy. I do a lot of developer relations stuff, and I write. I also tried the streaming thing, not necessarily for me. Might get back to it. I also DJ to myself in my free time in isolation, so very eager to do it for everyone else soon.
Nice.
And last but not least, Samuel.
Hi, everybody. Thanks to be here. I'm responsible mainly for the developer relations at Storyblog and a lot of other things. So taking care of documentation, and in my free time, currently there's like not a lot of free time. I'm taking care of the 2 little kids, so there's like no other stuff to do, basically just the Storyblog and family. So I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Great. We are so excited to have y'all. And you know, I look at this panel and all of your all's titles, and I envy your life because I wish I could do that 24/7. It's amazing. Which, by the way, doesn't mean it's easier. Actually, mean it's harder because every single developer relations person I know is able to juggle. They have to juggle like 30 things at once. So if you want to get into DevRel, if you can't juggle 30 things at once, you're probably not going to love your life.
I love all of our head nods in unison. We're like, yeah.
Yeah, well, like it's just 30. Yeah, just 30.
The to-do list is endless.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited for you all to be talking about your project. So does anybody want to go first and just give a quick 5-minute update?
I can go. I prepare my slides, so sorry, guys. And so I will share my screen. I do a really very, very quick screen sharing on my presentation, which is very short. So Storyblog, where I'm responsible for developer relations and the present and the future. So if you don't know what is Storyblog is a headless CMS and some highlights. We have multiple ways to basically go for internationalization. You can check out the custom workflows, advanced RISE. We are proud of the content scheduling pipelines. Also, already have integration with multiple e-commerce solutions, and we are also very proud about the visual editor where we are focusing on. So it's something we take care of, that any front-end framework basically can have a visual editor with the content editor. So it's the UX in the mind. And from the future, what we were also asked us, so what we are planning for the future is we are working currently, and already the beta is somewhere hidden. So there is a Storyblok version 2, which is coming soon with enhanced UX. And of course, we built a design system with Storybook with that. So if a lot of people are confused by Storyblok and Storybook, there is a reason for that. But we are using also Storybook. And what you could do with that is extend Storyblok basically with custom apps and plugins, thanks to this design system we will get into soon. The next is also we working hard on the REST version 2 with new methods, which will be much faster, even more powerful, and also updating our GraphQL API, which is already there from last year, and you can use it if you want and check it out. And the last, this is something which is like really like a feature. So it's like if you can want to give like glimpse of the future, and this will be probably happening in 2022. It's the marketplace where you will use and everything works together. So basically you will create using the design system, your own custom apps, and then you can offer it in the marketplace where in the Storyblok. So that will be hopefully something huge. And the last thing I have to notice, mention that we are also proud about the new new investors we have. And we basically closed the Series A in this January, if I'm correct. I didn't miss it, or February. No, it was a month ago, so it was from February. And that's from me. So the 5 minutes update. Thank you very much.
I really love that slide because I just saw 8.5B. So it's like $8.5 billion.
That would be too much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for providing that update. Who'd like to go next? I feel like Kapehe is like, is anybody else going to speak up?
I think I can go next. We're doing like, we're all keeping our poker faces. So yeah, I do DevRel at Strappy, and there's a lot going on in Strappy. Strappy is the open source headless CMS. There's a lot. So where do I start? We have a really cool conference coming up. We have our first user conference called Strappyconf, and I'll share a link there. We have amazing engineers, amazing content managers from all over the world, top companies coming to speak about a bunch of really cool things. We are refreshing our database API, and that'll be out Q3 sometime. So that'll come with like a lot of performance improvements. We're also tweaking our plugin API to make it much easier for developers to build plugins and like extend the functionality of Strappy. That's really cool. Let's see what else. Updates. We have a lot of official plugins that we'll be working on. So if you have any plugins that you'd like to request, we're really going to double down on building plugins and helping you extend and manage your content much better with Strappy. And I'll end with Strappyconf because there'll be a lot of really exciting announcements that you do not want to miss. So those are a few updates from the Strappy side of things.
Thank you. Awesome. When is the date again? When is the conference?
Oh yeah, I missed that. It's 22nd April. I can share a link. I don't know. I'll put a link. I don't know if YouTube will let me do that.
Cool. Well, you can put it in the private chat and I can share it out as well. So
okay.
Thank you. Kapehe, you want to go next?
Yeah. So yeah, at Sanity, we actually also do have an event coming up. We are calling it Content is Data. I am going to grab that link and I will put it in the chat. So here we are going to talk about what the team has been working on, but also letting the community meet the team and just like kind of get to know us and what is in the future and what is coming up. We also have launched our community ecosystem. I will also put a link in the chat. And what it is a place to share your content that you are creating, whether it's blog posts, guides, plugins, snippets of code, whatever it is where you want all of your content to live. So kind of like a portfolio. You can have like you can turn on the toggle if available for work or not. But it's a great place to like share your content and share it with the community. So we have that as well.
We were just looking at that internally, and it's such a cool idea. Like what a great idea to put a portfolio out like that.
Yeah, it's a great way to start your portfolio and get everything in one spot. And I'm all about portfolios, so I'm all about this project.
That sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to the link as well. I love that y'all are hosting so many awesome events / conferences, because I think we need it, right? Like headless CMS stuff is just like all the rage right now. It's all everybody wants to talk about. So I'm super stoked. Who would like to go next?
I can go.
Okay.
So at Contentful, we have two main updates that were happening. So we have a set of RESTful and GraphQL API. The APIs were adjusted to now finally include tags, to have them as a first class field type so that you can filter and search. A lot of people were asking for that for quite a while. So that just shipped a few days ago. And today is actually a lucky date because Contentful launched 2 new products today. Actually, so we launched Compose and Launch. What we've seen for especially big customers, like with lots of content, we had the request for 2 different things. One thing is the ability to schedule content and run huge, massive releases for a lot of content in a handleable fashion, because it's not that easy when you want to publish maybe 1,000 entries on a certain date. So this is one product that is called Launch. And then we had a repeating request coming up for a more opinionated UI to build actually for the web and to build websites. So the idea, and all the people here know that probably, there's always the question how opinionated you want to be to build for the web, because the whole headless idea was always a little bit like, yeah, let's be general and kind of keep it out of the web. But we now published a separated app that is called Compose, which is built for the app, for the web ecosystem, to make it easier for developers to build for the web. Yeah, and that's Contentful feature updates today.
Exciting. No events to share?
Our developer conference is in September, so I can plug that, but it's a little far off, I guess.
Awesome, thank you. All right, last but not least, Jason.
Yeah. So I'm feeling a little bit like the odd one out here, but I'm very excited because let me hold on. Which one is my? Is this screen one? Let's find out. Yes, it is. Okay. Is it gonna let me? It's not gonna let me. Is it doing it?
Sharing?
Nah, it's not gonna share.
No.
That's fine. It's probably gonna make me try to restart the computer, isn't it?
Don't do it, Jason.
Later. Fine. Okay. So I just won't share a screen, and instead I'll just talk about Netlify. So Netlify is I think kind of it's not a headless CMS. It is a kind of partner to headless CMSs, where it's more of the deployment target that you would use to build sites with a headless CMS. And part of what I love the most about this job is that it means that in the course of working at Netlify, I've been able to have Cap and Stefan on the show, and now that I'm meeting, I'm absolutely having the rest of y'all on. We get to do so many fun things with, we've got Sanity in production, we've got Contentful in production, we've got Strappy in production. So we get to see these really cool things being done. And what I really like about Netlify in particular is that it is I've been calling it it flattens the complexity of ops and building websites across the stack. So it's faster for front-end developers because you are deploying, you're using these headless CMSs as APIs, you're writing code with whatever front end you prefer, and it all deploys onto a CDN so you can get live really, really quickly. On the release management side, you don't have to do release engineering anymore. It kind of all squashes down. And if anything goes wrong, you can click one button and roll back, right? So you go from being a merge PR to being live in about, 1 or 2 minutes, which is kind of unheard of. And this is at big companies, right? The Netlify app, for example, is built on Netlify. And I just checked, and so far today, we've deployed to production, let's see, 6, 7 times. So you know, it's like 9:15 in the morning. So it creates a model where you can deploy continuously and like truthfully, that's actually the case, which I find really, really exciting.
It's very impressive. So many
Speaking
pushes to
of,
production in such a short time.
Yeah, for sure.
I just remembered when Jason said he was at Netlify. I just released a Jamstack Explorers mission, actually,
Yeah.
building a lyric blog with Nuxt and Strappy. So you should have a look at that. And
Yes.
on top of the millions of other things, I forgot one thing in my update. I'm sorry for stealing your shine, Jason. We have a really requested feature coming out soon. We'll have a beta for our content internationalization. It's super hard to say. That's I18N, which is coming out pretty soon also. So yeah, that's the last update.
Oh. If I may take a word for a second, and I will join also that train of conferences and meetups. So yes, we have plans for that. We did already once also this year, and more are upcoming this year. So stay tuned.
That is amazing.
I've done 2 rounds of updates just in case.
And I guess if we're all doing conference drops, JamstackConf is coming up in October, but the registration is open and the call for proposals is coming up soon. So we would love to hear from all y'all about how you're using headless CMSs and or how you're building the modern web.
Cool.
It's so exciting.
Thanks.
I love us all getting together because I think this is just such a great, you know, you can see kind of like in one event how the ecosystem is evolving, and also how, you know, one idea sparks another idea, and then all of a sudden the general ecosystem just kind of lifts itself up. So love to see that. Let's transition off into our panel portion of it. And I think Matthew has some questions prepared.
So yes, as you all know, headless CMS seems to be the big buzzword in the industry these days. And I'm very curious what you would recommend new users to look for when they're shopping around to start using a headless CMS for the first time. What do you guys think a good list of features that new users should look out for?
As someone who doesn't work for a headless CMS, I would love to kick this off. I think you should look for the one that's solving the problems that you have, right? Because I think that each of these headless CMSs has amazing solutions for slightly different business use cases. Like one of my favorite things about Strappy is the slice machine setup. Or no, sorry, that's Prismic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So no, Strappy's got the code-based setup of like this kind of really nice click GUI deployment, but it's all still code-based, which is really nice. Sanity is so good for like if developers want to define everything in like very close to JSON types, not quite. You know, Contentful is so good for managing large teams and like all these pieces. And I'm so sorry that I haven't used Storyblock to give you a plug, but I'm gonna have to have you on the show so that I can plug you next time.
Yeah, you should definitely.
Yeah, but I think like the part that I find really interesting is that each one of these is gonna serve a different audience a little bit better or worse, right? Like if you've got a team of all developers, then finding one that is managed almost entirely in code makes a ton of sense. If you've got a team that is almost no developers, then you probably want something more managed. Like, you know, like Contentful is really good at that, where you don't really have to do a whole lot of code to use Contentful. And everything kind of falls on a spectrum where, you know, you're looking for, well, we need lots of editing and access control. We need an editor workflow where somebody can write and then somebody else has to edit and approve before it can go live. And some CMSs are better at that than others. Sanity's got the like presence API that I saw that was really cool, where like when you edit, your face will show up in the post and somebody can see what field you're editing, which I love. It's very much like, who's going to be working on this? What problem are you solving? And what way are they actually stepping into this CMS? And, you know, what benefits are they actually going to feel versus being confused by?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cap. You go.
To follow up with what Jason is saying, yeah, it's really what your team needs. Like yeah, if you need something that can be super customized, definitely find one that's like the developers can like customize it and make it like how the team needs it, and then editors can go in and edit that content, but not worry about the customization of it and building out the schemas. But if you need something that's just like out of the box, so yeah, really what your team needs. And then yeah, following up with that presence API, that team collaboration, maybe it's really important to you to see where your teammates are within the platform, and being able to like jump around and find them. But yeah, it's really what your team needs.
Yeah, exactly. I would definitely agree with it depends, as we used to say, because I had already like few calls with potential clients or developers, and they were looking for some specific features, and then at the end I just point them to the different headless CMSs. So at the end of the day, I really love that we are getting more and more like share of the market, I would say, and we are getting like already the attention of the like bigger companies, like enterprises, and it's not like some hipster stuff that some cool developers just trying out at the headless, but it's already like big companies are using this system like Storyblock, and then we are able like. From the Storyblock, I would definitely mention that the way that we were able to connect the visual editor. So we kind of some people also already like think about us like the page builders, but we are definitely not a page builder. We just have we created the possibility to have like any front-end framework basically to show how to edit it. So that's something I think it's cool, and exactly like there any of us have something better, and we can now focus and then get inspired by each other. That's great.
So it definitely seems like the key is figure out what your needs are and then analyze how the different CMSs can best fill those needs for you. And that definitely helps out. I remember when playing around with Headless CMS this year, I was drowning in all my options. There was so many options to pick from. So there's so many great technologies out there, and I'm impressed with the array of technologies. Definitely.
Yeah, I think there's one point that is still to mention. So I agree with what everybody said, but it's also kind of figuring out where you want to go. So I think treating the editors well, so that everybody, when there are 15 people editing the same project, that's a challenge by itself. But I think there's also a second part to the story, which is like, what happens when you have 15 developers working on that too? So especially when you're going into this headless mode, how do you deal with developers making content modeling and structure changes and branching out, and how do you get the thing then back in? When you're working with bigger customers, this whole, oh yeah, we have one single API and it gives everyone everything back, that is quickly set and set up. But when you start progressing, it's very important to kind of figure out where you want to go with that.
We have a question internally, or not internally, but we have a question from the chat. Phil said, well, he has two questions. Oh, did this have the whole thing? Okay, so basically he said the variety of Headless CMS is awesome, and now we're seeing big enterprise CMS starting to try to enter the space more. How do folks on the panel feel about that? Does it validate the category or risk diluting it with almost but not quite implementations which clients choose instead?
That's a really good question.
All innovation is good innovation, I guess, but
I think it's really positive that it basically shows that this category works, and it shows that like developers are being pretty clear that they don't want everything crammed into one code base, and we've seen how painful that was when we all inherited Magento sites back in the day, and then we were trying to turn Magento into a blog, or when we inherited a WordPress site, we were trying to turn WordPress into a forum. That's not a fun workflow. And ultimately, like all the things I love about WordPress are the way that WordPress manages content. None of the things that I love about WordPress are in the way that it does content presentation. So them making a choice to go headless, or at least to offer headless as an option, I think it's a really strong vote for listening to developers and giving developers experiences that they want to work with, instead of trying to create these walled gardens where everybody has to be inside of our ecosystem or else they don't get our benefits. So I think that it's very validating for the category from my standpoint.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, yeah, for me, it's also like, if I think about it, like where is coming also the headless from, it's not exactly like we are saying that the monolithic CMSs are bad, but it's like coming from the small websites and we are like going to the bigger. So it's like I was, first my journey was like I experienced the Vue.js and the Next.js, and I was literally looking like, how can I manage my content? And there was like way to go for Git-based CMS, which Netlify did quite nice. But still, there was like then customers or clients ask me like, hey, but I would like to have a workflow. I would like to work on that this better way. And there's like still the MD files or these kind of stuff. It's not something that works. And then that's when the headless part is coming to part, because the transforming the old code base of the monolithic CMS to the headless, it's all still like kind of locked you in, and it's not giving you all the freedom that you would basically want to. So I think like also like for WordPress and others, like possibly in the future headless CMSs, there's probably a way to for the fresh start. I'm really questioning about like how can they change the already code base to something that will work as a headless CMS.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, and I feel like if there's a need, well, there must be a need if it's being developed or if it's being created. And if the community needs it, I mean, build it, create it, and see what happens. But how was it said? Big enterprise CMS, they saw a need, and so they're trying to fulfill that need that in their circle, in their community, they're trying to help out.
I guess nobody on this panel would say, "Don't enter, y'all. Y'all are doing it." Maybe it was a bad question to pose.
We're all in our fort with our like no enterprises allowed sign.
I think there's a risk actually, because it definitely validates the usefulness and the attractiveness of the space. Like headless is really like the way people want to build, the way developers want to build going forward. And sort of bringing, I'll use the term ghosts from the past, and building that and trying to bring old habits. I feel like there's a chance of that happening, like bringing old habits that headless was trying to avoid, or that brought up the need for headless, is a worry of mine. I would say it's something on my mind, not necessarily something I've seen, but something I hope doesn't happen.
Oh, yeah. I can confirm that. We had like a lot of internal discussions, because there was always like somebody, or I would say like there's always somebody who's trying to, at the end, couple the stuff with some front-end rendering. And we are literally always are like, hey, we are like decoupled, and we are not on the path where we will support this kind of. We are literally want to go for headless, and that means something.
Yeah, I think probably it's not only about going this API first route, but I think what happened with all this headless CMS approach is that we're structuring data differently. And I think this is actually what developers are into. When you sure, you get an API, but you are not dealing with this mix of one blurb that includes HTML and some whatever in an editor that falls apart when someone is not closing like an angle bracket or something. And I think this is the evolution that is actually happening. It's API first, but also structured data.
Yeah,
Cool.
we've been having a lot of conversations around that actually at Strappy. The way the whole concept of structuring data and the headless approach changes the front-end developer's perspective of building websites. And by front-end, I don't just mean like the web. It's much easier to distill snippets of your content for different platforms because of the approach that headless gives you. So +1 basically.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, Storyblock, for example, is built also the idea of the atomic design, if you think about it at the end. And we are coming from the atomic design. We are delivering it at like JSON or through GraphQL or a REST API, but you still can manage and build your stories in the smaller components, atomic designs. And this is exactly what we are doing in the Vue or React or Svelte or like modern frameworks, and also the frameworks like frameworks, languages like PHP can go follow up. And then this, like what I'm excited about is like the upcoming library of the components like BitDef and these kind of projects, which then will create a possible basically components that will be shareable also between our headless CMSs, and you will like maybe install them like packages, and then you will just then set up your content structure in the headless CMS, and you will use that. And that's really something I'm looking forward to it and hope it will be successful.
Something that this brings up is there's a concept that I end up teaching in a lot of like workshop settings of that I call optimizing for deletion. It's something that's it's an idea that I've pulled from a whole bunch of other people, including Chris Biscardi, who kind of helped me zero in on it. But the idea of optimizing for deletion is this sense of like when you decouple things properly, what you're doing is you're making it so that each component in a chain is more or less nothing more than an API contract to everything else in the system. And that means that you can hot swap it entirely. Like you can switch from, if you've got a front end sitting on top of a back end and that back end is monolithic to start, if you've got a good API contract and that front end is decoupled properly, you can drop that entire back end out, replace it with a suite of systems that do things that you need them to do. So maybe you drop in Storyblock for content, you drop in Shopify for e-commerce, you drop in, you know, like you make all these decisions, and then the API contract stays the same. Your front end doesn't even need to be aware that something happened. It continues to be the same, like well-managed code base with no awareness other than maybe some environment variables changing that the back end was swapped out. And I think that approach, that possibility that gets created with this kind of decoupled headless world is so powerful, because it helps, like it decreases the scope of tech debt. And I think that that's such a powerful thing, especially when you're looking at bigger companies, is, you know, if I'm a CTO or I'm an architect trying to think about how we manage our system and don't let the tech debt get out of control so that every 5 years we have to tear down the whole system and rebuild it again because we can't figure out how to maintain it. Like, this is how you do that. You shrink the footprint of each individual code base so that you can quickly, you know, even if something gets out of control, it's not the whole system. And yeah, there's just so many benefits that shake out of this. So I'm really, really happy to see that this is kind of taking hold as an approach to building, not just for the web, but like in general, we're seeing this as a development philosophy.
I think the way you talk about that, Jason, also is extremely valid because, you know, in working with a lot of enterprise companies, it literally is a rewrite. I mean, all the time. One of our clients, you know, it's like one year it was one, and then the next year it was another rewrite, and then the next year it was another rewrite. And it's just so much thrashing. And, you know, with these new technologies, it's like, okay, you know, we can decrease the amount of thrashing, but then do all our jobs go away though? Like, do we not need developers anymore because nobody's doing rewrites anymore?
Okay, I know I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to say this and then I'm going to make some space. But I actually love, like, one of the things I've noticed with companies that do these big rewrites is that a lot of times the rewrites happen because they get to the last 20% of any kind of build and they start seeing the complexity. And they go, oh no, I don't want to deal with these hard problems. Well, maybe if we switch to a completely different stack, all of these problems won't exist. So they tear everything down, they rebuild, they get 80% through, they hit the same hard problems and they go, that didn't solve it. Maybe if we tear this whole thing down and rebuild it again, we won't hit those problems. So what I think is going to happen isn't that all of our jobs are going to go away. It's that we're going to start solving better problems. We're not going to continually be reinventing our code bases to use whatever stack. We're going to actually start dealing with that last 20% that creates value.
Yeah,
I love that.
Exactly.
Obviously kidding about losing jobs.
No, I'm not afraid of that. I think like just it will be better jobs. We will be focusing finally on what users need, because like, I mean, we are like delivering like updates to API. The API and the whole websites are getting faster, and you don't have to do anything for that. It's like like you are probably paying a monthly something, but you don't have to go somewhere and update it and do all this maybe updates that are risk updates and all that stuff. So it's you can like literally focus on your front end and what user sees and consumes. So that's a huge benefit in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, at the end of the day, we will be connecting APIs and products, right? I think it was Phil who spoke at our meetup too, and it was like, you don't want to maintain all these things all the time. Again, it's authorization, it's e-commerce, it's content management, it's whatever it's out there. Having 5 developers building that from scratch with their own database, I don't want to do that. I would like to build something cool instead. And I think we are entering this new era now, which is, I believe we'll still have jobs. I think we're going to be all right.
Well,
when you are building a product, when you are building your website, you want to focus on what your product is, and you don't want to worry about, like you're saying, like the authentication, how your content's going to be handled. If you can find a headless CMS that can take care of all that work for you, and you plug it into your project, then you can focus on selling your book or whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah.
So another question that I wanted to ask you all, this year I've gotten into GraphQL pretty heavily this year, and I love it over using RESTful APIs. I absolutely love consuming GraphQL APIs, and I'm very curious to what the adoption has been like for your GraphQL APIs. Have people been pushing to use your GraphQL APIs? Are they enjoying using them over your RESTful APIs?
Yeah, or is it like RESTful APIs, bye, nobody's using them anymore, and it's all GraphQL? Or is GraphQL kind of still like the new, and it's still a smaller percentage of what's being used?
I mean, from the start, I have to say, like in Storyblock, we invested like a lot of time into REST API, so it's like still more powerful than GraphQL, and I would still like encourage and recommend to use it over the GraphQL. There is like not necessarily. There are like other means like why the GraphQL at the end can be complicated, and they're like because we are moving also all of requests to basically to Storyblock and our hardware, so it's not necessarily means that it will be like faster as the REST API in like what we see. Also like at the moment this our like visual editor also works better with the REST API instead of the GraphQL. But definitely, like the GraphQL, I see like more opportunities for it, also for the like apps where you need to, or even the combinations. That if you are like going for the websites, then the REST API is great because you get all the information you need, and then the parts you just request through the GraphQL, for example.
So at Sanity, we started with Grok from the beginning. That was the query language built in-house. And we saw like a huge need for the GraphQL world. And so we implemented GraphQL, and we actually get about 4 billion calls per month with GraphQL. So we saw a huge need, and it's definitely being adopted heavily on this side.
It's a big number. wow.
Is that like $1 per call? Yeah. I like that pricing model.
So I think like I see GraphQL and REST as being very complementary services, right? Because REST is effectively, in most cases, the way that REST is defined, it's a one-to-one mapping in a normalized database, which when you need database access, using REST is great. But when you're doing it in a front end, you end up making like, okay, I'm going to get a list of posts, and then that post has like IDs of the authors, and then I'm going to have to send one query per author to get that author data. And then if I want to get related posts, I have to send one query per ID in the author like related query. So now for one call to display some data, I've made 35 REST calls, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can set up good caching strategies and things to work around that. What I like about GraphQL in that particular instance is that it allows you to move the caching strategies. It allows you to move the management of that behind the scenes, so that the developers who are good at managing, like the ones who are trained in setting up, oh, we need like a Redis cache in front of this one because it's particularly slow. We want to deduplicate these queries. We want to like all of these sorts of things that are really tricky to get right. They get to manage that and say, okay, front-end developers, build all the bespoke endpoints you need. And it's going to be fine because we've put in best practices. So I think that it very much depends on how you're using the data. If you are the one who needs to go back and get your own data, yeah, build the REST endpoint that gives you exactly what you need. If you are exposing it in general and people are going to use the data for all sorts of weird purposes and you have no way of knowing what that is, REST is a ticket to a bad time, because people are going to end up like building a bunch of really inefficient queries that hammer on your database, and now you've got all these scalability problems. So I think GraphQL in that case is like, if you don't know what people are going to ask for, GraphQL is a great solution. If you know exactly what they're going to ask for, REST is a great solution. And I don't see that going away.
Yeah,
It's a
I'm gonna
fantastic
jump
way to
on
look at it.
Yeah.
Jason's. I'm going to jump on what Jason said. At Strappy, we have REST by default as the API that we use to access data from your content, basically. And that for context also, Strappy is self-hosted. You can store your data in a couple different databases. And for our GraphQL implementation, that comes with some issues. And that's why we've only seen adoption for GraphQL come to 30%. And then that's why the database upgrade that I mentioned, so we're redoing the whole database API, that's where that is super important. So that'll come with a lot of really good performance enhancements for GraphQL. We're to help use GraphQL because it's really cool way of working. It makes both GraphQL and days at the same time, or without having to turn off both. And
I think you're breaking up, Daniel. Can you say that again?
oh, okay. How am I now? Can you hear me?
You're good
Okay.
now.
You're
Yes.
back, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So, Robo Daniel, I love that. So yeah, I was saying Strappy has a really interesting way of handling GraphQL and REST. So you can make requests to both the REST API and the GraphQL API. So for more traditional things like file uploads that currently the GraphQL API isn't really optimized to do really well in bulk per se, people use the REST API. But like Jason said, if you want to get like really granular into the type of data you want, or very specific into your database requests, GraphQL works really well. Also, just because of the very developer-centric nature of Strappy, it's really, it's got a really cool developer experience when in terms of like creating custom resolvers to mess around with different parts of data. And yeah, so I'm sure the adoption will grow, but I don't see one taking over the other one. I like to see them as a complement for each other.
Yeah, there's also
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That's
I just
what we
want
see at now you go.
No, you go.
What we're seeing at Contentful is that, so we have a set of RESTful APIs and GraphQL, and they're basically growing both at the same pace. And because I think for this particular question, it's always like, it kind of depends. First of all, for JavaScript developers, they are when they have played with GraphQL, they're very confident in just going, okay, here's GraphQL, bam, 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 and they query array, and they get the job done in 5 minutes. When you look into different programming languages, though, GraphQL is far away from being mainstream.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of programmers just like, no, I'm not trying that. Where's your SDK? I don't want to deal with anything learning new. I just want to have some documentation and do get entries and call it a day. So this is what we see a lot. Plus, GraphQL, what I see a little bit of pushback in our community is the beauty of GraphQL, which is like you can query everything that you want, which is beautiful. But I've seen developers more and more, it's like, I don't want to define that. I just want to get everything. I don't want to sit down and define field A, field B, which is an interesting discovery, because this is exactly what I like, or what we like probably about GraphQL, that you get what you want. But some people, I'm kind of on the RESTful train, which is like, give me everything. So I think that GraphQL will not replace RESTful APIs in any time soon.
Yep. I would just add it exactly what Stefan said, but there is like one addition, and that is like different also levels. Like REST API is in our case used by the integrations very often. So you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that with GraphQL. So if you have an integration to a language and you are requesting basically a story from a URL where you have a Slack, then you are not going to define probably the whole GraphQL like query. In the case like you would go for application and you know exactly the data where to go, then you would go for GraphQL. So it's a little bit maybe a laziness of our developers sometimes. And we find that how also we're solving that if you're requesting like something that is another story, like relations to a different object, is basically that you can define in parameter, hey, could you resolve these attributes to basically as JSON objects, and then they will get what they need.
I think this is all really good perspective because, Twitter is not the world. Well, it's not representative.
It is not?
It's
what?
Well, if you're on Twitter, right, like as a developer, you might be like, well, GraphQL or bust, period. That's it, but just kind of seeing all y'all's perspectives on what you all are seeing is more the reality, which is nice. So, yeah. Where is
I 100% agree.
Yeah. It's not on Twitter. So where is it? Like, where do we find it? All right, Matthew, I know you have another question, which I'm super curious about too.
Yes. I'm curious to hear what kind of features users seem to be consistently asking all of you guys for. Like, what do people want for the future of Headless CMS? What kind of features are they looking for from you guys?
It's not very specific, but more customization is what we're seeing a lot of. Developers want to be able to. It's not theirs. It's not their Headless CMS that they built, but they want to feel like it is theirs. And so the more that they can customize it, the more they can make it exactly how they would have built it. Last year, there was a lot of need for seeing changes that were in the platform. So we created review changes where you can go in and see what other teammates have edited, content they've deleted or updated or added. And being able to roll that back to a previous one is kind of like playing around with GitHub branches, but being able to roll that back was a big one. But really just seeing that they want more customization, and we can take that anywhere. How do we want to help the developer customize their content? And so we just kind of have to add more features as we go. But yeah, customization.
One that comes across for us frequently is people who use Netlify point out the things that they miss from monolithic CMSs, which are mostly around the editing experience. They want to see previews. They want to see they want to be able to kind of review something in place and maybe share that around before they finalize it. And that is possible with I know that Contentful has a way to do preview content, but right now developers have to build it, or if they don't build it, they have to use a particular framework that has made that choice for them on how it gets done, and that that can be really challenging. So I think that those types of workflows are going to be the big ones, around how do you edit on a team and share that work before it goes live and make it feel the way that it used to when the whole experience was controlled. There's some good work in this space though. I just saw something really cool from Prismic where they give you this link that you can click, and I didn't really look at what it does, but it looks like it kind of fires up something in their client-side JavaScript that just changes the active URL to show the preview content. It was really clever, and it worked on any framework. So it was wow, that's okay. So we're gonna get there. It's gonna feel just as good on every platform.
Yeah, I agree with that. For the preview part, I think we made the first steps, but it's still a lot of custom integration. Doesn't matter which framework you're using, but if you're on the whole static generation part, your editors don't want to wait 30 seconds to see a preview because you're running a build. That is, you will have troubles to sell that to your editors if you don't have a solution. And I feel like currently there are some first steps, but we all have probably on the framework level, we have all a little bit of work to do there, or we have to progress a little bit to have that finally figured out.
Yes, I would agree. I mean, with the preview, we are maybe what we are focusing on. So we kind of a solution at the moment, I think, for that, which is we have the draft version where we are adding some special keywords. and then you can like run basically two environments. Like you have a development environment, which is like basically running a local host on Netlify or Warsaw, or where you want to host it. And then basically using the and this is like already possible with the like framework, not only the modern for JavaScript frameworks, but also with PHP. So basically you're replacing the content in a real time, because you are just catching the events in the iframe, and then basically you get a new bunch of data, which is like whole JSON at the end, and just replace it. And this is something that I think it's really powerful, and where we, like a lot of us, move into this direction kind of. And then definitely, as Cap said, like the customization, that's something that it's needed to be for the future, because there are so many features at the end, and everybody's asking for something else. There's slight differences, and the best way to enable it is like to give them the possibility to build it their own way. So the way to authorize, and then basically like add a new section in the whole system. So then there is running their own application, and that could be like a Trello board, which look like something, or the deployments from the Netlify, which is also interesting. And you don't have to leave this headless CMS to see if everything was deployed.
Yeah, I love what you said there. Like everyone wants something, so just let them build it themselves, sort of in a non-mean way. Yeah, that's sort of the approach that we're taking also, because we see a lot of people asking for like flexibility and customization, and people want to implement like custom solutions, but that's only possible to some extent. One thing I see a lot of people requesting, and I think this is somewhat where the whole headless ecosystem is going, is because there's the developer experience, and I think there's the content managing experience, and there's like a bridge between both. I think at the moment we're doing really well on the developer experience in most places. And I think previews are sort of that bridge between the developer experience and the auditing experience. I think a lot of people I see, particularly at Strappy, requesting features are more on the authoring experience. People want to be able to collaborate. People want to be able to see who's made changes. People want to be able to see or restrict access to certain things or certain fields in your CMS. People want to be able to customize the CMS visually, how it looks, where things appear. They want to make it feel like it's theirs, basically. I think Cap said a version of this. So that's what we're seeing on our end.
So we have a question from YouTube. Matthew, do you want to read it out loud? I'll find it. There it is.
Yeah. What about from Ayash? He was asking, what about data structure? Do we expect headless CMS in the future to agree on one format? He says that it would be revolutionary. It would make it possible to export to different CMS platforms.
Yeah, that would be beautiful.
Who wants to start?
I have zero faith that we will ever land on a unified data structure. Like there's a really good FTD about this, where somebody says, "Oh my God, there are 14 competing standards. We should write one standard to unify them all." And then weeks later, somebody says, "Oh my God, there are 15 competing standards." So I think we all are doing something that solves unique cases, and the likelihood that we'll land on something. I mean, I think we can land on data structure like we're gonna use JSON, like. We can get you that.
Close enough.
I vote YAML.
I still think if we even would say that we are using the same format or something, there will be always the use cases that if you want to move to a different CMS or headless CMS, there's also the reason why do you want to move there, and probably then you will have to anyway change the schema and the structure of your content there. So there will be some transformation needed. So you can theoretically already do it right now. Just take your content from Storyblok and go to any of these guys, and you can just go for it.
I do think that's a really good point, actually. When you think about if what you're looking for is content portability, standard content is very portable as is. You can export your title and your date and your content and your author from any of these APIs and get it into a format that you can then import. And that's not a very heavy lift. There's probably somebody in the community who's written that export import flow already. But that's really not why you use a headless CMS. Like, being able to store the exact same kind of data is not what gives each of these headless CMSs its strength. And so, you know, the portability of content is not going to be about data structure. It's going to be about problem solved. And I don't think that that's a reasonable thing to expect from products that are serving different audiences and different purposes.
Oh, that makes sense. So something that I was wondering is, what are some of the coolest projects that you guys have seen that utilize Headless CMS? This is a pretty opinionated question from you guys, but I'm sure you guys have seen some pretty interesting things made with this.
So I saw a very interesting project one time. It was managing the content for the medical dummies for like CPR training. And so it would like capture beat, like how the CPR, like the person, how many beats or pushes per minute, if they were doing proper breathing. And so the data that the medical dummy had would be stored. And then for like testing purposes, it would be able to like, the student could learn from it, or the teacher could change the curriculum on it. But that was probably one of the most unique use cases I've seen, is saving the data from those medical dummies.
That's really awesome. I've taken a CPR class. That would be really cool to be able to capture that data. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to be a flight attendant, and CPR was a huge part of it. And a lot of these dummies have this data with like a little card. And so it was a lot of work to put the card like into the computer, but having it hooked up right away and seeing that data right away was pretty awesome.
I'm always impressed by IoT stuff. So I mean, the majority of things that are built are usually websites or mobile apps, but when you have the content in a structured format, and it's a little Wi-Fi LED display that showed you your last published things because it is available like that, I'm always impressed by these kind of IoT examples because it shows the beauty of everything.
Yeah, it's like what I can mention is like I like also like we were used for car manufacturers using us for configuring exactly the car configurators. So such stuff that's just great use cases for it, and then you can consume it in your mobile app. Or Education First, which I can name, is using us basically to build their, like, that's 55 different languages, if I'm correct, and over 400,000 websites. So it's really like huge, and it's great. And they have like I don't know, like hundreds of editors, and it works. So it's I think we already like proven that Headless CMS is already for enterprise clients and big projects. So
yeah, for some reason, I think the coolest projects I've seen are gaming related. I think I have a few examples. So the one that really blew my mind was a Unity project that it was basically a VR application, and someone built a VR application to teach students remotely how to play the piano, and you'd have this sort of interactive experience where you put on your VR goggles and you press the keys, and your instructor is able to see everything that's happening, and that was just so cool. And like you can see things highlight on the keyboard. That just blew my mind. I've seen people do like Discord bots. That was really fun. And then one really unconventional one, but sort of conventional because it's a website. I saw someone build so they had these 3D rendered models that they animated, and they managed that animation in Strappy somehow. I'm still trying to get them to and it was so we actually did a webinar on that. I'll try and look for the link. But it was just, I have no idea how they did that. It was really nice.
Yeah, but that shows the challenge that Cap mentioned, right? Would have no idea how you should store and edit 3D data in Contentful, and we are obviously not optimizing for that use case because people are not asking for that.
Yeah. people just find the most intriguing and interesting ways to, express their creativity. I love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what y'all are saying is there's room for another Headless CMS to enter the market that optimizes for
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
For 3D renders, yeah.
I think it's actually a really cool kind of vote of confidence for headless CMSs in general that, you're seeing use cases that don't even make sense. Like you know, when you're looking at this product that you're working on, and then somebody's like, oh yeah, I'm using it to do, like if somebody had walked up to me and said, I use, your product to power a CPR dummy, I would have been like, what? That doesn't work. That's not how this is. You're holding it wrong. But actually, they're not at all. It's just a really cool usage of technology for something unexpected. And I think the flexibility is so kind of inspiring in that way, that you can, people can hold it in ways that you would never think to hold it. And it's not wrong. It's just not something you would have imagined.
Yeah.
I think that's when you realize that this is a great technology, when it can be used in different ways than expected. Like, that's what makes it a beautiful technology.
Well, I think that is, I think we're coming to a good stopping point here. But I wanted to encourage everybody listening to continue the conversation for all of this on Twitter. So our lovely panelists are all on Twitter. Do you guys want to share your Twitter handles and also post them in the chat?
I'm
let me look for
at Jay Langsdorff.
Mine is Kapehe _OK. KAPHE.
Mine's Samuel Snopko. So basically my name. If you can see it somewhere there, then just / Samuel Snopko.
I'm something I came up with when I was 13, so don't judge me. It's Malgamdes. So yeah, I'm at Malgamdes.
And mine is my name, Stefan Juris. I posted it into the chat already.
Great. I'm posting them. Oh yeah, you posted already. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, that's wonderful. And definitely, again, I mean, there's such amazing content that all of these amazing folks are creating for whether it's streaming or whether it's events that are coming up. So we posted them all. But again, feel free to continue the conversation on Twitter, and hope to see you all at some of these upcoming conferences. So thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.